British used was subsidiary alliance. Subsidiary alliance. This was nothing, they were just framing the policies anyhow to grab the Indian land, anyhow to exploit the Indian kings, anyhow to exploit the Indian resources. Now the second policy which the British imposed on the Indian was the doctrine of lapse. This is an amazing doctrine of lapse. What is this doctrine of lapse? The doctrine of lapse was introduced by Lord Dalhousie, which stated that dependent state would pass to the East India Company if its ruler died without a natural heir, that is the ruler's own son. Suppose a king is not having son, he has two daughters and he does not have a son. So after the king, the kingdom shall pass to the British. As per the policy of doctrine of lapse, any king or queen who died without a legal or without a appropriate natural heir, not adopt son, not nephew or niece, or having brother's child, sister's child, no, owns a natural heir. So without a natural heir, the kingdom will go directly into the hands of British. This way, the British annexed Satara, Jhansi and Nagpur. All of you must be knowing the story of Jhansi, because when this doctrine of lapse was imposed on Jhansi, the queen of Jhansi, Lakshmi Bai, she did not have a son. Her husband died earlier, very soon after the marriage. She did not have her own son, natural son. So the British told that we will annex, we will take away your kingdom. But she adopted a son. And British denied that this child is not your natural, that this child is not born from you. So he cannot become the king of Jhansi. But Rani Lakshmi Bai, she did not obey. She gave up. She did not give up to this doctrine of lapse, and she told that I will not give my Jhansi to anyone, to foreigners. And she fought very fiercely with the British, and she died fighting bravely. And after her death, the British, they annexed Jhansi. With the growing territories under East India Company, it now needed a new administrative structure. How to control, how to organize these kingdoms, it now acquired a new structure to rule India. The British territories were divided into units called presidencies. Now the British territory means the places annexed by British were divided into structures or units called presidencies. It was Bombay Presidency, Madras and Bengal Presidency. These were the three hotspots of the British rule. The British annexed this place, and this was known as Bombay, Madras and Bengal Presidency. Each had a head called Governor General. So the head of the representative of British, they remained here. They were known as the Governor General, under whose leadership the East India Company prospered, acquiring wealth. Now these Governor Generals, they remained here in these three places, and they planned and they plotted to attain the wealth of India, and they were just bringing in by all unjust means. They were gathering the wealth and they were sending to England. Warren Hastings was the first Governor General of India from 1773 to 1785. Warren Hastings, we will see the picture is there in the side. Please kindly see, children. Warren Hastings was the first Governor General. The East India Company was controlled by the British Parliament until 1853. Now this business organization, now what all the trade There they acquired the kingdoms of India, they annexed, they plundered the wealth. This all management was done by British Parliament until 1853. During these years, the company expanded its trade territory from present-day Pakistan up to Burma, whole of India, from Pakistan to India, and then east side, Burma, Thailand, everything they annexed, and their business, and they conquered, their business expanded. And it was not business, basically it was just looting the wealth of this place, and they expanded. And so in the freedom struggle, in the Indian freedom struggle against British, one major point which is very much mentioned in Indian history is the revolt of 1857. The revolt of 1857. The revolt of 1857. Now, what was this revolt of 1857? The injustices of British rule on all sections of society, whether rulers, zamindars, artists, traders, soldiers, led to rising discontentment. Now, Britishers, you must have seen in old movies and all, that Britishers, they used to ask tax from the poor farmers, from the peasants. If they were not able to pay tax, the British man, the Englishman was sitting on the horse, and he used to whip the poor farmers, and farmers used to just join the hand. This was the scene most common in old films and all. And because the British, they exploited and they tortured to exploit the resources from people, all the class of people, all the stratas of society were fed up from British. Whether it be zamindars, whether it is artists, they were unemployed, whether it was traders, whether it was soldiers, they took away trade from raw materials were transported to England. So there was nothing left. All the persons were unemployed, they had no food to eat, and gradually they were making India a poor, sick and unemployed, and they brought India to a very pathetic condition. As a result, the resentment, the anger in the people was growing against the British. The collection of taxes was the prime concern of British officials. Most of the kingdom of India was under the British rule. Then the resources of these places was under British rule. Now they started to extract wealth. So they used to extract taxes from the people. The collection of tax was the prime concern of British officials. The welfare of farmers was ignored. Until and unless we don't give incentive nowadays, in today's present day, you will see that banks are providing loan, bank is providing cheap in the pesticides, the manure, the fertilizers, seed, grain, implements, everything in a subsidized cost to the farmers. Until and unless we don't give incentive to farmer, the farmer will not grow good crop. So to have a good yield of crop, we need to give incentive. But Britishers, they had no concern that what they are doing, what they are not. They just saw, that the farmer is growing his crop and they will snatch away his produce, they will take away. He will grow the crop hook or by crook, let him borrow money from the moneylender, from the zamindar anyways. As soon as they find that the farmer has grown, he has produced his crop, they'll come and they will snatch from him. The collection of taxes was the prime concern for the British officials. The welfare of the farmers was ignored. They were made to grow indigo and cotton against their wishes. Indigo and from beginning of the Indian. So let me make you aware of a fact that indigo is a plant that once you do the cultivation, once you plant indigo plant in any fertile land, after the cultivation of indigo, it makes the land barren. That's why farmers were reluctant to grow indigo. But the British, they pressurized the farmers to grow cotton and indigo so that they can send this to England and they can get high price they can trade it in the European countries and they can acquire high prices. The raw material was purchased from the farmer at very low rates, and the finished products were sold in the European market at higher prices. So the raw material like cotton, silk, and all the spices and other resources, iron ore and everything, they were taken from India at low prices, at very low menial cost, and it was exported to their country, and from there finished products were made and it was sold at very higher prices. Same was the fate of other classes of society. Not only trade world, but the artisans, they had no work. The potters, the masons, they had no work. Whole of India at that time, the people of India were reeling under utmost poverty. At least if they get a 1 square meal a day, then they thought themselves as lucky. Same was the fate of other classes of society. Cottage industries, mills and factories totally collapsed. Cottage industries means like small scale industry run by 2 or 3, like cottage industries, small industries which is run by 2 or 3 people from home. And mills and factories, mills mostly the cloth mills, textile mills or the sugar mills, all were shut. Factories totally collapsed. It was totally shut. There was no work. Nothing was there. No raw material was there. No money was there to give to the workers. Who will work? Who will give money to them? So the Indians serving in the army were kept at lower ranks. The British told that every kingdom has to employ Britishers, but they employed India. They came to India. They came as guests. They came as traders, but they employed the Indians to the lower ranks. All this collectively laid the foundation of the region. All this was just piling up in the minds of the people. All this was just amassing in the mind of people, and the anger burst out in the form of revolt of 1857. The anger to just now we are fed up of you, now you go from our country, and this anger came. First anger, the outburst of anger of Indian people was in the form of revolt of 1857. It is also known as the revolt of 1857 is also known as Sepoy Mutiny. It is also termed as the first struggle for independence. With this revolt of 1857, the world came to know that India was fed up by British rule. And this is mentioned in the pages of history as the first war of Indian independence. This mentioned that the Indian people now wanted to free themselves from the clutches of British rule. Now children, again I am telling you, I hope you are understanding what I am teaching. I hope you are getting my words. It is, just listen peacefully. It is very interesting story. Now, while reading these chapters, you will feel the pain. What the people then, you all are sitting in the comfort of your houses and your parents are providing you everything. You don't have your intention that today you just go and scream to your mother, mother, I want to eat this thing, and you have prepared this thing. Just imagine what the people of India have gone through to acquire freedom. You can feel the pain. If you listen attentively, you can feel the pain of the then people. That how, just imagine you are in your home and someone from outside he bangs in your house and he becomes the owner of your house and deprives you of the things of your house. You feel captivated. You feel like you are arrested. You feel like you are, nothing belongs to you. And that struggle was like struggle of Indian independence. The British came, they came to our land, they became our master, deprived us from our resources, and then they made our people poor, they deprived our people of food, and now our people wanted to just get rid of this English people. Next, the main cause of the first struggle of Indian independence was introduction of the Enfield rifle. Now, it is a bit story time. Just the main cause. How did everything erupt? You just listen to the sequence. How did it erupt? The main cause of first struggle of independence was the introduction of Enfield rifle. Newly Enfield rifle was invented and it was introduced in India. They brought from England and they told, because most of the sepoys or most of the soldiers were Indians, It is also very a fantastic thing that they engaged Indians as soldiers, and then when the British fought with other countries, they just like we offer fodder for the cows and goats, they just push the Indian soldiers like fodders. If they will kill people, then Indians will die, and it will not damage to British. So the cartridge used in these guns were coated by grease covered that had to be bitten off before being loaded. Now in this Enfield rifle, nowadays we have AK-47, we have Kalashnikovs, we have sophisticated weaponry, we have, and daily we used to see in movies and all what all type of weapons we don't know. But at that time, Enfield rifles was there. Every time you have to open the rifle and you have to load a cartridge, and then you have to close it, and then you have to shoot it. So to load the cartridge, to go, because rifles have a very long tube-like structure, and they have to pass through this. So to pass through this, that cartridge needs to be greased. It needs to be lubricated. So they needed some durable type of fat, and it was covered by the fat of cow and the fat of pig. So the cartridges used in these guns were coated by the grease cover that had to be bitten off before loading. So it was totally sealed like a chocolate. It was sealed with the grease, with the fat of the animal. So before putting it in the gun, just imagine they have to break open the gun, and they have to bite the wrap, the fat wrap, and they have to put it in the